The alien office was bright, filled with glowing screens and tall figures moving with sharp confidence. Their clothes were smooth, shining, and elegant. Every step echoed as if the floor itself was proud to hold them. Then the door opened. A small, alien girl entered. She looked different, very different. Her outfit was not smooth like the others. It was made of rough cloth, stitched with simple threads. The colors were faded. The sleeves were too long. The boots looked heavy and old. The aliens turned their heads one by one. Silence spread in the room. Then the first laugh came, sharp and cutting. Others joined quickly. Soon the office was filled with cruel laughter. "Look at her," one alien whispered loudly. "She looks like she climbed out of a trash heap." Another pointed at her boots. "Did you steal those from a museum?" Their words hit the girl like stones. She lowered her head, her cheeks flushed a deep color. Her fingers clutched the sides of her outfit, wishing she could hide it, wishing she could disappear. She tried to smile politely, but her lips trembled. Her voice came soft. This is from my homeworld. It is tradition where I come from." But no one listened. Her words were drowned by the noise of more laughter. One alien stood up and walked around her, pretending to copy her walk. He made his arms flap and his boots drag. The room roared again. Her eyes burned. Her chest grew tight. She wanted to cry, but she forced the tears back. Crying would only give them more reason to laugh. The girl kept her head low. But inside she screamed, "Why am I always the one they mock? Why must I always be less than them?" At that moment, the door at the far end of the office opened. A tall figure stepped inside. His footsteps were slow, steady, and heavy against the floor. It was the human boss, the one everyone feared, the one everyone respected. The aliens quickly straightened. Their laughter faded into uneasy silence. Some even hid their smiles. No one dared to act foolish in front of him. The human's eyes scanned the room. Sharp like blades, he noticed the stillness, the nervous glances. Then his gaze fell on the small alien girl. She stood, frozen, her hands trembling against her sleeves. Her heart pounded as his eyes locked onto her. She thought he would mock her too. She thought he would ask why she came here dressed like this. She thought he would send her away. The silence stretched longer. Her chest felt heavy. The aliens shifted nervously, waiting for his reaction. They expected him to laugh or scold her. They expected him to agree with them. But he said nothing. His face was unreadable, his jaw tight, his eyes steady. The girl dared to lift her head slightly. Her eyes met his for a brief moment. She felt a strange shiver run through her. His gaze was not mocking, not cruel. It was something else, something she could not name. Her breath caught in her throat. She lowered her eyes again quickly, afraid of what he might say. The human boss took another step closer. His boots echoed louder now. Every alien in the room held their breath. The girl's heart raced faster. Will he send me away? Will he call me worthless? The human stopped just a few steps away. He looked at her outfit, the old cloth, the heavy boots, the long sleeves. Then he looked at the aliens who had been laughing. His silence was heavier than any words. The room grew tense. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Some swallowed hard. No one dared to speak now. The girl felt her knees weaken. Her mind screamed for escape. But she stood still, frozen, waiting, and then his jaw moved slightly. His lips parted. His voice was calm, but carried power, a power that made every alien listen. But he did not speak. Yet, not a single word. He only stared, and in that silence, something was building. Something none of them could expect. The girl's heart whispered a question inside her chest. Why does he look at me like that? Why does it feel different? The air in the office grew colder, the tension thicker. Every eye was fixed on the human boss and the trembling girl in front of him. And then, without warning. His next move would change everything. Asterisk, the office was silent for only a moment. The human boss had entered, and his presence had cut the noise like a knife. But silence could not hold long when cruelty already tasted victory. One alien smirked. His eyes flicked to the girl's faded sleeves. His voice rose, mocking. She calls this tradition. Maybe her planet's tradition is to look poor. The room burst into laughter again. Louder, sharper, more cruel than before. The walls almost seemed to echo with it. The girl's hands shook as she pulled her sleeves tighter against her arms. Her heart pounded. She wanted to sink into the floor. She wished the ground would open and swallow her. Another alien leaned back in his chair, pointing. Look at those boots. Heavy, clumsy. She probably stole them from some abandoned mine. Their laughter rolled like a storm. They smacked their desks. They doubled over. They looked at her as if she was not even alive. As if she was a joke, not a person, the girl whispered. Again, her voice breaking. It is tradition. It is honor. It is from my home world. But her words were swallowed by the mocking voices. No one cared. No one listened. One alien even stood up, his body tall and proud. He walked around her slowly, his eyes narrowed, his lips curled into a sneer. He lifted his arms and pretended to wear long sleeves. He dragged his feet on the ground, copying her every move. The others laughed until tears rolled down their faces. Their voices blended into cruel music. The girl's chest burned, her eyes blurred. She fought to hold the tears. She told herself, don't cry. Don't let them see you cry. Her throat tightened. The laughter felt endless. It pressed on her like chains, suffocating her. And yet, behind it all, she could still feel the heavy stare. Of the human boss, he had not moved. He had not spoken. His silence was a storm waiting to break. The aliens, drunk on their own cruelty, forgot he was even there. Their mocking grew bolder, harsher. She looks like she is wearing rags, one hissed. Maybe she is a beggar dressed as a worker, another added. Maybe the only skill she has is sewing holes in old cloth. The laughter grew, but beneath it, tension pulsed like a drum. The human boss's jaw tightened. His fists curled behind his back. His eyes never left the girl. The girl could feel it, his eyes on her. His silence weighed heavier than the laughter of dozens. Her stomach twisted. Fear battled with a strange flicker of hope she did not understand. Suddenly, one alien leaned close to her, his breath hot and cruel. He whispered so the others could hear. Why don't you go back to your little planet? No one wants you here. The office roared again. Cruel joy filled their voices. The girl's knees weakened. She swayed. Her mind screamed. I should run. I should leave. I don't belong here. But her body refused to move. She stood frozen, trapped in the storm of shame. Then the air shifted. The sound of boots echoed once, twice, thrice. The human boss was moving. The laughter faltered. Some aliens choked on their own noise. Their heads turned slowly toward him. He walked closer, his face calm but hard, his eyes sharp as steel. The cruel laughter began to die. One by one, the voices fell silent, until only the sound of his footsteps remained. The girl dared not look up. Her breath came shallow. Her heart beat so hard she thought they could all hear it. The boss stopped only a few steps away from her. The silence was suffocating now. Every alien waited. The girl braced for his judgment. Would he mock her too? Would he dismiss her? Would he send her away? The silence stretched. Long, painful, like the pause before thunder. The girl's lips trembled. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, hoping no one saw. But the human boss did see. His eyes narrowed. His voice had not yet spoken, but his presence grew heavier, stronger. The laughter that once filled the office now seemed like a memory. weak and distant. The aliens glanced at each other nervously, their smirks fading, their confidence shrinking. They knew his silence was dangerous. They had seen him before calm, before storms. The girl swallowed hard. Her thoughts screamed, "Please, don't humiliate me. Please, don't send me away." The human boss's chest rose slowly, his breath deep. Controlled, his lips pressed into a thin line. The office held its breath, and then his voice came. Deep, steady, heavy with command. The words would change everything. The room had gone quiet. The cruel laughter was gone now, broken apart by the heavy sound of the human's footsteps. Every alien sat stiff in their seats, their proud eyes lowered, their smirks vanished. The human boss stood only a few steps. Away from the small alien girl, his shadow fell across her trembling figure. His face was calm, but his silence was heavier than any anger. The girl could not lift her head. Her hands clutched her sleeves so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. She thought, "This is it. He will speak, he will judge me, he will send me away." But the human said nothing. Not a single word. The aliens shifted nervously, waiting. The silence stretched too long. Each second grew heavier. The walls themselves seemed to lean closer, pressing down on everyone. One alien coughed softly. Another tapped his claw nervously against the desk. No one dared to laugh now. No one dared to whisper. All eyes were on the human. All ears waited for his voice. The girl felt her throat close. Her lips trembled as she fought to breathe. Her eyes stared at the floor, but she could feel his gaze on her like a weight pressing down. Her thoughts spun wildly. Why won't he say anything? Why does he just stare? Does he hate me too? She dared to lift her head just a little. Her eyes met his for the briefest moment in that second. She saw something that froze her completely. His eyes were not cruel, not mocking. They were sharp. But there was something behind them, something unreadable. It frightened her even more. Her eyes dropped again quickly. Her cheeks burned hot. She wanted to vanish. The silence continued. His jaw clenched slightly. His arms folded behind his back. His stance was tall, steady, unshaken. Every alien watched him. They expected him to explode, to scold, to mock, to send her away, but he did not. He just stood, his silence cutting deeper than any words could. The girl's knees trembled. A voice in her head screamed, "Say something." Say anything, but the human waited. His silence was not empty, was deliberate. It was heavy, and it made the others squirm. One alien dared to whisper, "Sir." But the words died when the human's eyes flicked in his direction. That single glance was enough to shut him down. The room fell deeper into silence. The girl felt her heart pounding louder and louder. Each beat echoed inside her chest. She wanted to scream just to break the tension, but fear chained her voice. And then, without warning, the human took one slow step closer. His boots echoed like thunder. The sound made the girl flinch. He stopped just before her, his face unreadable. His eyes locked on her outfit and the long sleeves, the rough cloth, the old boots. Her breath caught, her hands shook harder. She thought, now he will speak, now he will shame me. But again, he said nothing. The silence wrapped around her like a suffocating cloak. The aliens shifted in their seats, some biting their lips, some gripping their desks. They could not bear it either. His silence was worse than shouting, worse than punishment. The girl blinked back tears. A single drop escaped and rolled down her cheek. She turned her head slightly, hoping he would not notice, but he did. His eyes followed every small movement. His jaw tightened, but still he did not speak. The aliens stared, confused. Why was he waiting? Why was he silent? They had never seen him like this before. The girl whispered softly, almost too soft to hear. I only wanted to belong. Her words broke something in the silence. They cut through the tension like a fragile blade. But even then, the human did not answer. He stood taller, his eyes steady, his lips sealed. The girl felt her chest tighten. Why does he say nothing? Why does he just stare? Does he not care? But somewhere inside her, a strange thought flickered. Or maybe he is thinking the human's silence was not empty. It was choice, deliberate. He wanted them all to feel it. He wanted them all to face their own shame before he spoke. The girl could not understand. She only felt the weight of it crushing her. Her knees almost gave way, but she forced herself to stand. Her hands clenched into fists inside her sleeves. Her heart whispered desperately, "Please, someone, end this silence." And then his chest rose, his breath deep, his lips parted just slightly. Every alien leaned forward. The girl froze. Her heart slammed inside her chest. They all thought the silence was ending. But still, he waited, and in that unbearable pause, the air grew heavy enough to break bones. The next words he would speak would decide her fate. The office air was thick. Not with sound, but with silence. Silence so heavy it felt like a weight on every chest. No one moved, no one blinked. The human boss stood still, his face hard, his eyes locked on the girl. The girl stood like a statue. Her small form looked even smaller under his towering shadow. She didn't know what to expect anymore. Would he speak gently? Would he shout? Or would he just turn and walk away? She wanted to run, but her feet refused to move. Her thoughts screamed, "Say something, end this." Then the human took one final step forward. Now he stood only inches from her. The others held their breath, their eyes wide. He looked at her outfit again. Slowly, he studied the worn threads, the patched sleeve, the heavy boots covered in dust, and then he looked around the room. His gaze swept over every alien who had laughed at her. His jaw was tight. His lips were pressed into a hard line, but finally he spoke. "Hire her," he said. The words hit the room like a lightning strike. For a moment, no one understood. No one could even believe what they heard. Had he said what they thought he said? The girl blinked. Her heart stopped. Did he? An alien near the back stood slowly, his voice shaky. "Sir, excuse me, but did you say the human didn't look at him?" He stared ahead, his voice even firmer now. "I said hire her." Right now, gasps broke across the room like falling. Glass, shock painted every face. The laughter had vanished completely, replaced by disbelief and confusion. "But, sir," one alien dared to speak. "Her clothes, her appearance, she's not professional." The human turned his head slowly. His eyes burned with quiet fire. "You think I care about the shine of your jackets?" he asked. "You think? Fabric is what makes someone worthy." The room was silent again. No one dared to answer. The girl looked up, her eyes wide with confusion. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She felt like she was dreaming. He turned back to her and nodded once. "Slow and steady, you," he said. "Start today." Her heart jumped, her hands shook. She whispered, "Me." "Yes," he said firmly. "You." Another alien spoke from the corner, still trying to understand. "Sir, she's not like us. She doesn't fit in." The human's eyes locked on him like lasers. "Exactly," he said. "That's why she belongs here." Whispers spread like wildfire. The aliens couldn't understand it. They were always proud of their perfect appearance, their polished uniforms, their smooth voices and style. But this girl had been mocked, insulted, shamed, and the human bossy had chosen her. The girl's eyes filled with tears. But they weren't tears of pain anymore. They were warm, full of something new. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Respect," she whispered. "Thank you." Her voice so soft it almost disappeared. The human didn't smile, but his eyes softened just a little. "Don't thank me yet," he said. Just do your job. She nodded quickly, holding back the flood inside her. Then he turned to the room. His voice grew louder, sharp like a blade. Let me be clear, he said. If anyone here ever judges someone again by what they wear instead of what they can do, there will be consequences. The aliens sat straight, their spines stiff, their mouths shut. Your fashion doesn't impress me, he continued. Your attitude doesn't scare me, but your kindness, or lack of it, tells me everything I need to know. He looked one last time at the girl. She walked into a room of wolves and didn't run. That's strength, that's courage. That's what I want in this company. The girl could hardly breathe. Her hands covered her mouth. She had never heard words like this spoken about her. Not once in her whole life. The room had changed. The energy had flipped. She was no longer the target. Now, they were the ones being watched. The human turned and walked toward his office. His steps were slow but final, his authority echoing in every movement. As he reached the door, he paused. Without looking back, he said, "Give her a desk. Show her how things work, and if she asks a question, you better answer it like your job depends on it, because it does." Then he walked out. Silence stayed behind him, thick and powerful. The girl stood still, her heart racing, her mind spinning. A new voice whispered in her soul. You are not nothing. You were seen, and maybe this was the first day of a life she never thought she could have. The office was frozen in silence. The human boss had left. But his words remained in the air like thunder that refused to fade. No one moved. The girl still stood near the center, her arms hugging herself tightly. Her heart was racing, her thoughts were wild. He chose me. She kept thinking, he hired me. An older alien slowly stood from his chair, his voice full of disbelief. Why would he say that? Another one added. Why would a human protect someone like her? Their eyes all turned to the girl again, but this time, their expressions were not filled with laughter. Now they showed confusion, even fear. One alien, taller than the rest, finally stepped forward, his tone sharp. Don't get the wrong idea. He didn't choose you because you're special. The girl stayed quiet, but her fingers dug into her sleeves. He just wants to prove a point. The alien sneered. You're nothing but an example. More whispers filled the air. But no one dared to speak too loudly. The weight of the human's warning still hung over them. Then, without warning, the door opened again. The human boss had returned. He walked back in slowly, his expression unreadable. He had not gone far. It was as if he knew they would talk behind his back, as if he expected it. The room fell quiet again. Faster this time, he looked around at all of them, his eyes cold. What did I just say? He asked. No one answered. The tall alien who had spoken earlier stood straighter, trying to explain, Sir, it's not that we disagree, it's just, she's not like us. The human stepped closer. You're right, he said calmly. She's not like you. There was a pause, and then he added, she's better. Gasps spread across the room. The girl's breath caught, her eyes widened. You mocked her clothes, the human said, but those clothes were made by her own hands. He looked directly at the tall alien. Have you ever made anything with your hands? Anything real? The alien's face went red. But he stayed silent. The human continued, his voice steady. You laugh at her boots, but those boots have walked farther than your polished shoes ever will. He stepped back, addressing the entire room now. I've seen people wear perfect uniforms and do nothing but hide behind them. He looked back at the girl. And I've seen people wear rags and stand with more pride than kings. She stared at him, stunned, her throat tightened. She felt warmth in her chest, a kind of pride she had never felt before. She didn't come here to impress you, the human continued. She came here to work, to learn, to survive. Then, his eyes swept across the room again, sharp and full of meaning. And if that bothers you, you're in the wrong place. No one spoke, no one dared to. The girl felt her eyes fill with tears, but she did not wipe them away this time. He looked at her once more. I hired you because I saw someone who didn't give up, even when everyone was against her. She nodded slowly, her lips trembling. Thank you, sir. He nodded back once. Don't thank me. Just prove them wrong. The girl stood straighter now. Her fear had not fully left. But something stronger was rising inside her. She looked around the room, at the same aliens who had mocked her just an hour ago. Some still looked away. Others stared in silence. But none of them laughed. Not anymore. The human turned to leave again, but paused at the door. One last thing, he said without turning around. If I ever hear laughter like that again, at anyone, you'll be laughing all the way out the door. Then he left, and this time, the silence he left behind felt different. It wasn't heavy with fear, it was filled with change. The girl exhaled slowly. She had survived the worst part. She had stood through shame, silence, and the storm. And somehow, on the other side, she found something she never thought she would respect. One alien walked over awkwardly, not looking at her directly. He placed a small tablet on the desk next. To her, this shows how we log work reports. If you need help, just ask. She blinked, surprised. Thank you, she said softly. The alien nodded once and walked away quickly. Not saying more, but it was a start. She looked down at her old clothes, her heavy boots, and for the first time ever, she smiled at them. The girl now sat quietly at her desk. Her fingers hovered above the screen, unsure where to begin. Around her, the office was quiet, not tense like before, but watching, she could feel their eyes, but they weren't laughing now. No whispers, no giggles, just a strange kind of silence. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something new. Something uncomfortable like guilt. She looked at the tablet the other alien had given her. The buttons were strange, the language a bit different from her own. She bit her lip and stared hard. She didn't want to ask for help, not yet. Not because she was too proud, but because she wanted to show them she could learn. Her boots tapped lightly against the floor, the only sound she made. She remembered her homeworld, remembered her mother's hands teaching her how to sew, how to repair boots with thread and wire. We may not have much, her mother once said, but what we wear is made with our own hands. That is our pride. Those words came back now, like a whisper from another life. The office lights flickered. Once, a signal that the midday cycle was beginning. Some aliens stood to stretch. Others walked to refill their nutrient packs. One passed by her desk and stopped. He was young, and his silver uniform was neat and modern. He paused, looking at her. Then, after a moment, he spoke. If you tap the second icon, it opens the daily task list. She looked up, surprised. Thank you, she said softly. He nodded quickly and walked away without another word. But something in her chest shifted. That was the first time one of them had spoken without mockery, without coldness. She tapped the icon, and it worked. The task list opened up in bright symbols. A small smile touched her lips. The desk next to hers was empty, but soon a female alien with green skin returned from the corridor. She sat down and kept glancing at the girl. The girl noticed, but didn't speak. She didn't know if the glances were curiosity, judgment, or something else. Minutes passed. Slowly, the hum of the office returned. Quiet typing, soft beeps from machines, the normal rhythm of work. She focused on the screen, reading each line carefully. She didn't want to make mistakes. Her hands were still a little shaky, but her eyes were steady now. The fear hadn't fully disappeared. Something stronger was growing beside its determination. A message appeared on her tablet from the system server. It said, Welcome to your first day, trainee 117. We believe in second chances. Her eyes widened. She knew the system didn't write things like that on its own. Someone had changed the message. The human. She couldn't help it, her eyes filled with tears again. But this time she smiled. The green-skinned alien next to her spoke suddenly. Her voice soft. That message wasn't standard. You know that, right? The girl nodded slowly. I think. He changed it. The other alien didn't laugh. She didn't smile either. She simply looked at her and said, maybe he sees something we didn't. That was the first time someone admitted it out loud. The girl whispered, thank you. The green-skinned alien shrugged. We were wrong. You didn't deserve what we did. Her words were simple, but they hit deep. Forgiveness didn't come fast, but it had to start somewhere. The human boss hadn't come back yet, but his presence still filled the room. His words had rearranged the office like a storm that changes the shape of a mountain, and in the center of that change was the girl, small, quiet, but no longer invisible. Another message pinged on her tablet. A task had been assigned to her. Something simple. Just organizing files. She exhaled slowly. I can do this, she thought. One step at a time. Her fingers moved faster now. Slowly, but with purpose, she wanted to prove herself, not to impress them, not for revenge, but to honor the voice that had stood up for her. Time passed, and the day moved on. She completed her first task, then the next, and another. At one point, the tall alien who had mocked her most stood by her desk with a data crystal in hand. He didn't speak for a long moment, then held it out. This goes in Sector D, he said, not making eye contact. She took it without a word. Their hands brushed briefly, and he stepped back fast. But he didn't insult her, not this time. The turning point was happening not with a loud bang, but in small moments, quiet changes. Tiny shifts in behavior. By the end of the work cycle, she had completed 6 tasks. She had learned how to operate the basic system, and she had spoken to 4 coworkers without being insulted once. It wasn't perfection, but it was more than she ever expected on her first day. As the lights dimmed to signal the end of the shift, she sat quietly. Her eyes closed. She had survived the fire, and she had not burned. She was still standing. The office was nearly empty. Most of the staff had gone home. The lights were dimmed to rest mode. Machines hummed quietly, and screens blinked softly in standby. The girl sat alone at her desk. Her hands rested on her lap. Her work was done for the day, but her thoughts were wide awake. She stared at the small data screen. The last message still glowing. We believe in second chances. She read it again and again. That one sentence had given her more strength than all the lectures or training manuals. And deep inside, she knew he had written it, the human boss. She looked toward his office door. Still closed, still silent. She wondered what kind of man would risk his authority for someone like her. She was a stranger, a new hire, mocked and rejected before she even spoke. Why did he care? Why had he stepped in when no one else did? Her fingers tapped gently on the table as she thought. Her heart was full of questions, not the kind she could ask out loud. But inside that office, the answer already existed. The human sat at his desk, alone. The lights in his office were low. His hands rested on a photo frame he kept hidden from others. In the photo was a girl, not alien, but human. Her eyes were big and hopeful. Her clothes rough and hand-sewn. She was smiling, but in his memory, he could still hear her voice. They laughed at me today. They said I look like I fell out of history. She was his younger sister. Years ago, she had gone to her first job interview in a small Earth city. She wore a dress she had made herself. Her clothes didn't match the modern style, but they carried her love and effort. She had returned home in tears, her spirit broken by mockery he had promised her that day. One day, I'll be in charge, and I'll make sure no one gets treated like that again. But 2 years later, she was gone. A road accident took her before the world ever gave her a second chance. And now, standing in his office was someone else, someone small, quiet, mocked for her clothes, just like his sister. He didn't need to think. He didn't need to weigh decisions. When he saw the girl being laughed at, something inside him rose like fire. It wasn't just about company rules or office behavior. It was a promise, an old, silent promise. He leaned back in his chair, eyes on the dark ceiling, his thoughts heavy. He had not told anyone. No one knew the reason behind his sudden decision. To them, it was a strange human moment. Maybe a power play, maybe a lesson. But to him, it was personal, outside his office. The girl still sat quietly. She stood, finally, ready to leave. Before she stepped out, she paused near his door. Her hand hovered in the air, almost knocking, but then lowered. She didn't want to disturb him. She didn't want thanks or praise. But she whispered softly, even if he couldn't hear, "Thank you for seeing me." Then she walked away, her boots echoing gently in the hallway. Inside, the human looked up, his eyes narrowed. He wasn't sure, but he thought he heard something. He stood and walked to the window. He watched her as she exited the building. Her back was straight now, her steps steady. She didn't look broken anymore. He nodded to himself. His promise had not been forgotten, and now it had been fulfilled in some small way. Not everyone gets a second chance, but today, someone did. And maybe that was enough for now. The next morning, the office buzzed quietly, but it was different now when the girl entered. No one laughed. Some nodded, some looked away. One even smiled. She walked to her desk with quiet confidence, her boots still old, her sleeves still long. But no one dared mock them again. She was no longer invisible, and in the boss's office. The photo frame still rested on the desk, hidden from sight, but always near. The promise still lived, not just in his memory, but now in the hearts of those who had witnessed what he did. Sometimes, change doesn't come from force or power. Sometimes, it comes from one voice, one act, one order, spoken at the right moment, and from then on, everyone remembered that day, the day the human boss shocked them all with just one order.